said. Port Adelaide versus Collingwood, and Port continues their dominance over non-top 8 teams as they handle Collingwood after a little bit of a slow start here, though. So things were, I guess, maybe Port Adelaide, the first, I guess, a little bit of that first quarter, first term. You're wondering if Port Adelaide was really going to show up in this one, but then they kind of get their behinds in gear and they finish off strong in this one. And this is a game where you had Charlie Dixon leading the way with 4 goals. And the problem now is that the Magpies have dropped 4 of their last 5, and they're actually getting close to wood and spoon contention given how Hawthorn and North Melbourne have been looking recently. And that's good news for Giants fans because given the trade that happened this offseason, if the Pies finish last in the league, the Giants actually they have a chance to not only make the finals, but also get the first pick in the draft. So, fingers crossed. We'll have to wait and see there. The Power are on a roll. They've won 5 of their last 6. And let's talk Port Adelaide's chances at making the top 4. And let's also talk, there's a moment in the game where between Charlie Dixon and Jordan Rowehead where Dixon seemingly, well, he at least had hands on the back, and most people think he pushed. So what do you think about this situation? Was this a push in the back, and was this a missed call by the officials, or sorry, the umpires? And is this really any different than what they've been calling the whole season?
Oh, the hands in the back roll. I know I was watching an episode of On the Couch this morning, and Jared Healy absolutely just lit into the umpires over this last few weeks because they're not calling it.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to argue that it isn't. There were several instances this weekend where you're pretty sure that that's probably a push in the back, probably should have been called. It's not the defending space with the forearm or using their hands to defend space and then going up. There it looks to be extension, unfortunately. But if you really look at it, I don't think this is a call that changed the game at all. I think Port Adelaide, except for a little sputter at the start of the game through most of the first quarter, they really played really, really well. They capitalized on a Collingwood team that's undermanned. It's still kind of trying to find its way under caretaker coach Harvey, where this is a Collingwood team that honestly they look rudderless, they look lost, and it doesn't help that Pendlebury goes down with an injury to his leg to the point where he may be done for the year. And when you lose experience on this young Collingwood team, it really, really hurts you, especially in the area like the midfield.
Mm-hmm. Obviously, that is not going to bode well for them. And then let's take a look at Port Adelaide's chances at making the top 4. So right now they are in 4th with 52 points. And Sydney is right behind them with 48 each. Brisbane has 127 percentage points. Sydney with 118. Port Adelaide 121. So they're only leading to that game. Right now, if you take a look at the remaining games for this Port Adelaide club, their last 4 games are going to be against. They're going to be against the GWS Giants. They're going to be against the Adelaide Crows. Then they have Carlton and the Doggies. So right now, all games are winnable. I think they're going to be the favorite in at least 3 of these 4 games, and we'll have to see, depending on what they do in these next 3 rounds, how they're going to look against this Doggies team in terms of who might be favored to win. So, realistically, I think Port Adelaide could. It's a 3-1 is manageable, and if they see expectations, they could finish out the season 4-0. Then, if you look at Brisbane, they got Gold Coast, Hawthorn, Freo, and West Coast. So this Brisbane team could finish. I think a 4-0 finish for them is a little more realistic than Port Adelaide finishing 4-0. And then with Sydney, right now we have listed, and you got Essendon, North Melbourne, Gold Coast. So, do you think that? I mean, obviously they're at risk of falling out. It looks like, given the what we see from Brisbane and Sydney, Port Adelaide seemingly has to win out.
I don't know if they have to win out because they do have that nice little game gap between them and Brisbane and Sydney. So they do have that fallback gap,
Mm-hmm.
which you would say looking at their 4 games left, the Doggies is probably that mulligan, that game that you most likely would see them
Mm-hmm.
not winning. GWS, Adelaide, Carlton, if you just look at it right now, you would think they should be favorites in all 3. They should win all 3. They win those 3. That Doggies game, I don't think is going to be super impactful when it comes to if they make the four, because I think they'll already be there.
Mm,
It may be for can they move up to potentially third or second if the Duggies or Melbourne stumble. So
mm-hmm,
I think Adelaide has got a really good foot in here, but you just never know. The showdown between them and Adelaide is always tough. GWS is a team, again, we've kind of harped on it all year. They're a Jekyll and Hyde team. You never know what game you're going to get. Are you going to get a Swans game where you start off great and you fall apart, or a game like this where you fall behind early and then you come roaring back to win it late? So we'll really have to see. I would right now pencil Port in at 4, but I'm not going to pen them in
mm-hmm,
because you just never know. I mean,
mm-hmm.
they drop one to GWS, they get a little rattled. They go into that Adelaide game almost feeling like they have to win the next two to at least hold the opportunity to stay in fourth going into that Doggies game in the last game of the season.
A little bit of pressure on them, so we'll see if they could almost live up to it, overcome that, and end up with a really solid spot being at the top 4 of the ladder.